My personal view is that I would not be surprised if Buffett has billions of dollars worth of 400-ounce LBMA gold bars stashed around in very secure vaults at his various residences around the world.
Hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics. And because it's Sunday, it's obviously time for Denver Dave Kranzler's Silver and Gold Market Update, which today is sponsored by Miles Franklin. Dave, where are you buying your gold from these days?
I'm mining it from an asteroid along with Elon Musk.
All right. Well,
and Dave Portnoy, apparently.
For investors without Denver Dave's vast array of connections, the rest, anybody, if you want to get better than the online prices, plus Dave, your friend Yara, I hear she's hooking people up with silver. And you know, when I know you have this big gold fetish and everything, but if you wanted to get some silver yourself, Dave, you could do that by emailing arcadia@milesfranklin.com, where Yara will beat all the online dealers for you.
I didn't know Yara was the one distributing it. I'm going to buy some as soon as this call's over.
And Dave, this happened after we recorded last week's call. So as I'm sure you can imagine, I've been stumbling into walls. Like I just so flummoxed. I can't figure it out because let's say you're a billionaire. You have a successful investing track record, kind of like yourself. Why would you?
There's not any part of that sentence that's true.
Why would?
Well, maybe the second part, but not the first part.
Why would an investor with billions of dollars sell a blue chip company like Goldman Sachs to buy a company that just digs useless, barbarous relic rocks out of the ground? I mean, Warren Buffett, the investor of our generation. But he bought a gold company, which I can't figure it out. So thank goodness it's Sunday. Denver Dave, take it away, sir.
Well, first of all, it's Thursday afternoon when we're recording this, just for the record.
It's going to be Sunday, Dave.
Eventually it'll be Sunday, yes. I can't wait to rewatch this on Sunday. I mean,
thanks for like completely blowing me up on that one. I appreciate it wasn't like let's help smooth this one over, but thank you anyway. Continue now that it's clear.
Well, it seems like a lot of people want to know what's going through Warren Buffett's mind in terms of selling a blue chip of all blue chip companies, Goldman Sachs, right? Upright, honest, ethical company. I mean, should just have Goldman Sachs insignia on the American flag instead of the stars and stripes, right?
Well, you remember they are doing God's work, so
that's a good right, exactly. So I mean, rather than speculate, I put in a call to Warren, and I'm waiting for him to return my call to answer the question. So beyond that, I don't know if we really know what's going through Warren's mind. Who knows if it was even his decision? I mean, I think he's got other people, actually doing the day-to-day money management. I'm not sure.
I mean, you'd think they're like someone sends him a text or something when you're going to buy Barrick. Come on now. This isn't like, well, should I put 1 3/4 teaspoons of cream into the man's coffee today? I don't know. I'll just throw it in there. I mean, come on. Well, there's a question. Do you think that's actually possible that they could have bought Barrick without him on some level personally signing off on that?
Honestly, I don't know. I don't know if anyone knows the answer to that question other than people that work for the investment arm of Berkshire Hathaway, right? I honestly, I don't know. I mean, I think didn't it say he bought 20 million shares?
I did not.
And I'm looking at a chart of Barrick here, and it topped out at the beginning of August. So if he bought those shares after the beginning of August, maybe he marked the top of the precious metals bubble. I honestly, I mean, so first of
The
all,
precious metals bubble, Dave Kranzler called it. Wow.
I'm being sarcastic. Just trying to figure out the market value of I mean, let's assume the average cost was 19, and I think I already bought 20 million shares, so it's some what is that? $380 million worth of Barrick stock. I mean, it's an insignificant percentage of his overall investment portfolio, right? At Berkshire Hathaway.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know if it was maybe to send a message to his fellow elitists. I mean, it certainly it certainly is a puzzling, especially considering, I don't know, like maybe 10 years ago or 12 years, whenever it was, he said, you know, he had no interest in buying gold. It just sat there. It doesn't even earn interest. I don't. You can look it up on Google. I mean, at the time when he said it quaked around the gold bug circles. So, my honest opinion I can understand why he bought Barrick, or whoever works for him bought Barrick. It's the largest cap. I think it's got a larger cap than Newmont. If it doesn't, they're pretty equivalent. It's Newmont and Barrick are the most liquid mining stocks, so it's easy to move in and out, and the market doesn't know. You can buy 20 million shares and the market blinks. I mean, it doesn't even blink. I mean, because Barrick, it has plenty of volume and liquidity. So my personal view is that I would not be surprised if Buffett has billions of dollars worth of 400-ounce LBMA gold bars stashed around in very secure vaults at his various residences around the world.
I mean, I guess you don't buy Barrick, whether it's Warren or, his guys. And by the way, I wonder if Warren gets text messages. I think he still doesn't have a cell phone. Isn't that how that one goes? But
what is that? Is that the myth?
Well, he always acts like he's pretty anti-technology, and
he's not. He owns $89 billion worth of Apple stock. He's not anti-technology. So hang on, let's backtrack a second. According to the article I just pulled up, he bought $562 million worth of Barrick. And this particular one doesn't say how many shares, and who knows? Who cares? It's 562 million worth of Barrick stock. Berkshire Hathaway's market cap is 492 billion. So it's an infinitesimal percentage of his Berkshire holdings, right? What a lot of people don't know is that his father, Howard Buffett, was a congressman from Nebraska, and he also was a gold standard advocate.
The guy sounded like the Ron Paul of his generation. I'm glad.
Right, exactly. So my guess is, again, I'm just guessing. No one knows. I would bet Warren Buffett owns a lot of physical gold, as I mentioned, stashed well secured at his various residences around the world. I mean, for what the guy's worth, he's probably got, all of his homes around the world are probably well guarded. So, that again, I'm just guessing, but I don't know how, if you're as intelligent as Warren Buffett allegedly is, how you would look at the US dollar and say, I think it's a good idea to own US dollars and US dollar-based financial assets instead of owning physical gold. And I know he knows better than that, especially given the environment that he must have grown up in with his father.
That was the clincher to me, where, I mean, I could understand it if you said, well, I like businesses over gold, and Or, I mean, maybe that doesn't even, it just never made sense. But then when you add in that it wasn't, I know there's like some people that just know nothing about gold and it's kind of confusing. But like you said, when you read some of the things that his father said, I've read some of the articles and some of his quotes and the people describe. I mean, it literally is like sounds like Ron Paul. So when Warren talks about, he just doesn't. He pulls a Bernanke about it, you know.
Well, here's the thing. I read an article. I wish I had saved this, but it was a slow day on the trading desk and when I was working in New York, and there was some publication had an article, an in-depth article about Warren Buffett, like a not flattering article about Warren Buffett. It was like trying to, expose the differences between the reality and the myth, right? Like the myth is that he and his wife lived in that stupid house in Omaha, Nebraska, their whole life. Well, first of all, that's not. It was total BS. Maybe his wife lived there. I doubt it. But have you ever seen a picture of that house? Like some red brick house or something, modest, looks like a Hutchison home or something. The reality is he's had, lavish residences in Sun Valley, Santa Fe, and places around the world. His suit that was carefully tailored to look like a frumpy, rumpled sack suit was actually tailored that way intentionally. They were extraordinarily expensive, and they were tailored in Italy. So, I mean, there's a huge difference between the myth of Warren Buffett and the reality. So, I think the reality of Warren Buffett is that he's probably a cold-blooded capitalist, just like all the ones that I used to work for on Wall Street, where they would squeeze dimes and nickels out of their mother if it if it meant if it was the difference between their mother having it and them having it. So, I would say that he's well aware of the differences between fiat currency and owning physical gold and silver. And he probably owns a lot of it for himself. We know at one point he owned a lot of silver. He probably still does own silver privately. And, who knows? Maybe he was sending a message, I mean, again, as a percentage of Berkshire Hathaway, the Barrick position is insignificant. It's meaningless. Outright, it's meaningless. So that's why there's probably some sort of hidden message there.
Well, Dave, since I'm assuming like all of the other top shelf investors in the world, I mean, he's got to be watching Denver Dave's weekly silver and gold market recap. So maybe if you want to suggest some silver mining stocks for him to look into and lift some valuations there. Because as you mentioned, a lesser known part of not the myth, but the reality of Warren Buffett was that he didn't actually load up on silver once, but twice, when it was being demonetized, and again then in 1998. And I know, I believe you talked about that in the Big Silver Short book, but for folks who have not gotten to your chapter yet, even though it is chapter 1. So.
How do you not get to my chapter? I mean, what do you're like my wife's mother. She goes to the back of the book, and of any book she reads that's like a mystery, and reads the last chapter first, and then she starts the book.
Well, judging by your ratings, big boy, it looks like some people might be reading Andy Schechtman's chapter before yours. So
Mazel tov, Andy.
That's probably just as a courtesy because they're hoping for some free gold or silver. But what can you touch on about Warren Buffett? Again, it's not conspiracy theory. You could the footage of his, I believe it was his 1998 shareholder meeting where he talks about it. He sounds like you and me, but anything you can share there?
In terms of the silver that he owned?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he bought a ton of silver because he understood how cheap it was relative to gold and relative to commodities and really relative to any commodity or investment in the world. Silver was cheap then. It's I would argue even after the run up from $5 to I don't know where to close today, $26. I would say that it is still, it's still the cheapest investment. And I don't look at it as an investment, but because it's so cheap relative to financial assets and other commodities, you're going to get, if you buy silver here, you're getting a wealth preservation asset first and foremost, but you're also getting an asset that is extraordinarily cheap and is going to throw off investment returns at the same time because it'll appreciate relative to everything else. And I think over the next 18 to 24 months will bear out my investment thesis there for why you would want to buy silver.
Yeah, and you see here at 27.40-ish on the day, was interesting. David Morgan, the silver guru, he was talking with Greg Hunter of USA Watchdog, and he mentioned that if you CPI adjusted, I think he was using the John Williams shadow stat, so a real measure of inflation, that the 1980 silver high of $50 CPI adjusted using John Williams brought us to $600 per ounce, which, and I mean, when you look at what happened there, where at least, I mean, I guess there was some speculation on Warren's part with the futures, but some physical demand. And it's like, we don't know what would have happened had they not raised the margin requirements. It could well have gotten past that back then. But I guess to your point and what Warren Buffett's point as well, silver, even though, you've had the run up, certainly from a long-term perspective, seems like there's quite a ways to go while in the midst of a hyperinflation campaign.
Right. Again, I don't want to be on record as saying I think silver is going to go to $600 an ounce. Honestly, I think the dollar is going to collapse before we would ever find out, where the price of silver would peak, priced in dollars. And I think the same is true for gold. And I've said this for 15, 16 years. I said we may never find out, exactly how high gold and silver should be in terms of dollars, because by the time there's a reset, we won't be using dollars to price gold and silver. So, but what I will say is that I think that silver as a wealth preservation asset is actually going to give you better performance than even gold if you're worried about capital gains. But again, the dilemma is, it's a catch-22. Let's say silver's at 27 now. It goes to 270. You gonna sell your silver and get dollars? Because what happens if the dollar collapses the next day? Your dollars are worthless.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing. I mean, who would have guessed 2020? Here we are, and we're at the point where it's like now we're not decades off from any of those parts of what you just mentioned. Although, Dave, fortunately for investors like Warren Buffett and everybody else out there that is watching, you write this up twice a month. And I actually did read my mining stock journal before we talked today. I guess I must have known you had some silver stocks covered in there, which obviously makes me happy. And where do folks get the good stuff?
investmentresearchdynamics.com. As you saw, I had an update on Fortuna Silver, and I had an update on GR Silver, and I also issued an opinion on the Oren Eastmain merger, which Oren is taking over Eastmain Resources and spinning off its Peruvian assets to shareholders. I don't know if you got to that part. And I also talked about a new idea, which a mining company executive gave me yesterday. We talked about it, and it was one that I had been ignoring. And then I took a closer look at it in the context of some some variables that we discussed, and I decided that it's actually a very good potential lower risk 2 to 3 bagger over the next 6 to 12 months, assuming the price of gold keeps rising, which I believe it will. And it's actually not the price of gold and silver that are rising. It's the value of the dollars that are used to buy that gold and silver that are depreciating.
This is certainly true, Handsome. And the link for that is where, Dave? Where do they get
We're
the
doing
link?
this
Right
again?
there in the description field below. Excellently pointed, sir. And by the way, folks, you can know that Dave, I don't know if well, you're signed up for Ask Denver Dave session at Silverfest, which is going to be September 11th, 12th, and 13th. Dave, the panels and the Silver Talk, there's more just hanging out on the Friday night, the 11th, although we will be watching Trading Places.
Love that movie. I used to know every line by heart.
Well, I mean, folks, if you were not convinced to sign up, I mean, maybe we could get like a live cam on Dave, so you could have the movie on one side, then Dave reciting the lines on the other side. I mean, it's amazing we're allowing free entrance to options like that. But Dave, you're signed up for a couple of the spots there. We're going to be talking mining stocks. Folks will have a chance to ask one of our most popular guests all of their questions. Well, maybe not all of them, but we got a half-hour slot there, and I'm going to be looking forward to it. Hopefully, we can raffle off a tennis match with Dave. I'm gonna push you on that one beforehand. We'll see how it goes. But thank you, as always, for being here, sir. Any tennis this weekend?
As a matter of fact, yes. Tomorrow evening, possibly Saturday, and league mixed doubles on Sunday.
Wow, well, that sounds sexy. We'll look forward to hearing how that goes on next week's show. And folks, if you'd like to hear what happened on the physical level of the market this week, well, that is coming your way now.